Welcome to episode 1 of Wrestling with the Mind, a podcast where we explore the world of mental health. My name is Matt Sigmund, health coach by day, professional wrestler by night. Now, after so many years in this wild world of professional wrestling, I have seen a lot of examples of how mental health challenges can take a toll on people's lives. I believe mental health is an area that needs a lot more attention, and I feel that this project of mine is a great way to make that happen. So welcome. I look forward to diving into today's interview with Jason Kincaid. But before I do that, a few quick notes here. Visit wrestlingmind.com for all things related to the podcast. There you can subscribe and download to all of our feeds. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, and a whole lot more. Adding more each day. We're also going to be adding a lot of resources related to mental health and forms of support for people, so check those out. We'll be adding more in the weeks to come. And I'm excited to talk to some of the people that we are lining up for this, looking to chat with people and hear their stories from all walks of life. You know, I've got connections with wrestling, fitness, video games, and more. And I'm just looking forward to hearing people's stories, letting them share their experiences and ways that they are dealing with their struggles and battles day to day, as well as just some inspirational advice on how they overcome and push forward with things. So I'm excited about that. Of note, with my interview with Jason, we ran into a tech problem that I caught on the back end. He has a bit of an echo. We tried to fix a little bit of it as best we could in post, but I hope that doesn't take away from what I feel was a truly powerful conversation. We've talked a lot over the years, just in the car rides and things, about life and mental health and how we go about from day to day. But I feel the chat we recorded last night is something very rewarding, and I hope that you guys find it that as well. So sit back and enjoy and listen to Jason Kincaid. All right, so I'm sitting down here with my long-term friend of 15 plus years, somebody that I look at as a road partner and a brother, and just one of the most, he's going to get mad that I'm putting him over just so hard here on the front end, by the way, but just one of the most inspirational people that I know, Jason Kincaid. Jason, how are you doing?
Greetings, grappling fans, and hello, Sigmund. I'm doing very well, happy, healthy, for the most part anyways. As healthy as a person that's been wrestling as long as we have can be.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people that are listening to this may be not familiar with wrestling. You know, we'll probably have wrestling fans, and then we might just have a good general audience. So for those that don't quite know who either of us are really at this point, can you introduce yourself a little bit? Give us an idea of Jason Kincaid.
Yeah, so first of all, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at GIF Kincaid, because then you can see all my rad wrestling clips and understand what I'm about. But yeah, I've traveled all across the world, Canada, Mexico, Japan, across the United States, a lot of times with the guy that I'm talking to right now as a professional wrestler. In the Japanese wrestling media, they called me the most creative wrestler in the world. I'm not saying that. The Japanese wrestling media are saying that.
That's on the official documents that are released in the press over there, right? Yeah,
I've got proof. Yeah. I got receipts. I mean, don't question me.
And you mentioned how we have traveled a lot together, and that is no exaggeration. Wrestlers are often known for exaggerating stories, for the better most of the time, makes them more entertaining. But we have literally sat in cars 36 hours one way to get to various Canadian towns. We have walked the streets of Japan together. We have wrestled literally all over the United States, pretty much coast to coast. So when we say we have traveled together, I think we have seen quite a fair share amount of this dear world we have.
We've spent Valentine's days together, and you're not just going to gloss over the fact that we walked around Japan together. But not only did we walk around Japan together, we walked around in the rain, and I held an umbrella for you.
Yeah, and you had like sandals on, I think, or something. Yeah, it was a lovely rainy day there in Tokyo. So, but yeah, so we have traveled a lot together. We have seen our fair share amount of ups and downs in the wrestling business, in life in general. I have watched you grow from wrestler who I didn't really know all too well, that sat in the corner of the locker room, to somebody who so many people now look up to in terms of just seeing the love you put out in the world and the care you put out in the world. And so if it's cool with you, I would love to dive into just a little bit of the mental health aspect of just your journey, your life, a little bit of the wrestling, and so on, if that's cool.
Absolutely. And I'm still sitting by myself in the corner of the locker room. That part I think.
I pull the chair up beside you from time to time when I'm in there. You know,
I'm still in the corner. I'm still waiting for other people to approach.
Well, you're kind of scary. I mean, you got the head tattoo, you got the crazy long beard, and you might be a little bit intimidating to a lot of people.
And I have resting jerk face.
Oh, well,
if I'm sitting there and I'm not actively trying to smile, I look mean too. I understand.
What does good mental health look like for you at this point?
Interestingly, I think you've seen my whole redemption arc as far as my mental health goes. Like, you've seen me get extremely violent with people in the ring, and in an admittedly self-defense point, I'll say. You've also been on the road with me in Canada when I've slapped people at the bar, dudes that were talking badly to me. And now I'm at a place where I don't do things like that anymore. So good mental health to me is managing my own emotions and being able to be in control where I wasn't before.
Right. And as I said on the front end, I don't want this to become a crazy hardcore wrestling podcast, but how has the wrestling business impacted your mental health?
I think it's a very positive impact on my mental health, actually, because so much of what's important to us as a human species is community. And one of the things that really hurt me during the lockdowns of the first days of the COVID pandemic was the fact that the community got pulled away from me. Because I'm not just the guy in the locker room sitting by myself. I'm also the guy sitting at the house by myself most of the time. I'm an introverted person. So I love going to the wrestling events and I love being around my brothers and sisters. But I also want to come home and not talk to anybody for a couple of days so I can recharge my batteries. That's one of the ways that I help my own mental health.
Yeah.
But when you take away all the human interaction and I'm just the guy sitting in my house, I was going pretty cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
And, you know, I think that happens to a lot of us, especially going through the pandemic. We're used to being out in public. We're used to being in front of people performing. And then you take all of that away, and it is an entirely different environment that we are not accustomed to. And that can bring on a lot of challenges. Now, you know, in terms of self-care and just protecting your mental health, keeping it in a good place, what does self-care kind of look like for you? How do you prioritize that?
So for me, it's really about understanding the way my own mind works. And one of the ways I accomplish that is through meditation. And meditation takes many forms. But really, it's all about understanding that I am not my thoughts. Because most of the time when I'm mentally unwell, it's because I get trapped in a negative thought loop. But a thing about meditation, and meditation could literally be going to the gym. Like, you understand this. Your best workouts aren't the ones where you're distracted and thinking about something else as you're pumping out your reps. You're literally concentrating on your breath, You're concentrating on the muscles themselves. You're bringing yourself back into your body, back into the present moment where everything else just kind of fades away. All the mental formations that are causing you undue stress. So for me, like, I don't meditate every day. I almost use meditation like medication because I've reached a certain level of insight where, like, if I feel myself starting to enter what is called the sympathetic mode so there are two human modes, basically. The sympathetic mode, which is flight, fight, freeze, and the parasympathetic mode, which is rest, digest, heal, basically. And so when something revs you up and that goes on like a light switch, you can all of a sudden be in complete fight mode. But to get back down to that parasympathetic mode, you have to do something to bring your heart rate back down.
Right.
An easy way to do that is breathing. And that's why so much of meditation is breath work.
Now, what was the tipping point here to where you realized that mental health was key? Because, I mean, even from just watching you and knowing you as a person and how things used to be on the road with us, and then, you know, switching over to a couple years later, we're doing these long car rides where we just sit and, you know, we're on 36-hour long ride and we sit for 5 hours and talk about life and the afterlife and just our journeys and how we feel about things going on in the world and how we take care of ourselves and our body and our family. And what was that point to where you realized that, you know, you needed to try to do something like meditation or some way of taking out that stress and finding that peace?
So honestly, from probably my late teens to my late 20s, I was suicidal. Like, basically thought about killing myself every day, which is really like a product of what was called manic depressiveness then, like called bipolar disorder now. So I would get these really high highs and these really, really low lows. And I was just stuck in that cycle to the point where, like, I really was going to harm myself or harm others to the point of no return. And I'm lucky enough that at that tipping point, I sought out help through study, through reaching out to friends, through community. But really, that was the catalyst. It was literally like either I do something,
right,
or I'm going to do something.
Right. You know, and that point, and when you get to that point, that is, I don't understand it fully myself, right? And that's part of why I'm doing this podcast, is because not only do I want to help others, but I want to grow and learn more and try to understand this journey that everybody's on. And everybody's journey looks different, you know. But when you hit that point and you realize that you need help, it takes a lot of strength to reach out and ask for it. You know, a lot of people, and you look on social media, people we know, people that we're friends with, that we've traveled with, and they post just really negative thinking and thinking that they're alone and that they have nobody to turn to, and oftentimes that is not the case. But in their mind, they're being attacked, and that's worst case scenario for them. But the social media aspect, they are reaching out to a degree, and just getting that point, though, it takes a lot of strength to ask for help. And so I'm glad that you were able to utilize some strength and make that happen. Number one, do you find that in wrestling, we've made the joke? I mean, we get lighthearted about it in general, but we made the joke that most of the people that are in wrestling are broken. We've talked about just how I don't like using the word screwed up. I don't like calling anybody screwed up, but we, you know, between us, we get lighthearted about it, and we say, you got to be really screwed up to get into this business. And you look around the locker room, and everybody is suffering really in one way or another, or has gone through something traumatic. Do you look around the locker room now and think the same thing? Do you see most of the people that we kind of work with to a degree as broken, or there being a trigger like that mentally as to why they find the business rewarding?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it takes a special type of person to want to dress up in a costume and play fight. And
yeah.
I think a big aspect of that is like one of the reasons that we were drawn to wrestling even as fans is the black and white morality of professional wrestling.
Right.
Of like there's a good guy and a bad guy, and the good guy can solve the problems of the world by beating the bad guy up.
Yeah.
So it simplifies things. And especially for a lot of us that grew up in bad situations as youngsters, and that's not everybody in business by any means.
Right.
But it gave us hope as fans. And I think playing that dream and that hope out really helps us on top of the community aspect.
Yeah. And looking at that too, like even from my perspective, my childhood was not terrible. I had 2 loving parents. I had a lot of friends. My parents went through a nasty divorce, and it led to like a 13-year custody battle for me and my brother. And I mean, even at the time, I still loved both mom and dad, but it put a lot of tense pressure on me as a kid to feel like I might be doing something right or wrong based on what was going on. And you first turn to superheroes, things like that, for an escape, or whatever it might be as a kid, shows or whatever you find entertaining. And for some it's video games, and I did that too. But for me it was superheroes, and then I found wrestling, and that was my escape each week from just the crazy daily life that I was living. And like I said, it was a good childhood, and there was no abuse or anything, not problematic in terms of me as a kid, but just mentally it did wear down on me with the divorce stuff, and finding wrestling and getting hooked on seeing superheroes come to life. It made me want to do it, and now I find it rewarding that I can be that escape for people, for kids who are going through whatever they might be going through at a young age. And I can be that moment for 20 minutes, 25 minutes that I'm out in the ring doing whatever I might be doing that night, good or bad, that I get to be part of that piece. And that's been something cool too. And just the work and the matches that I've done with you, you're one of the most creative people in wrestling, and you legitimately find some mind-blowing ways to go out there and catch an audience's attention for a few moments and make some magic. And I just think that is crazy special when I look back at a lot of what we've done together in general. So how do you deal with setbacks? Because even when you reach a point that you're on a good track, good pace, we all have bad days, and sometimes obstacles pop up that are more challenging than others, and they can cause a setback of sorts. How do you deal with setbacks and overcome?
I'm glad you asked that, because that is another important aspect of mental health, which is acceptance. Accepting what is. There's like the negative version of it is what it is, where people are like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm getting screwed over again. It is what it is. But there's also a positive version of that, of it is what it is. And just accept it, because that's the only way that you can actually make a positive change, right? It doesn't mean accept it and don't do anything about it. It just means accept reality as it is. One of my favorite ancient teachers, he was a prince from what is now northern India, modern day Nepal. And the story of his life goes, his father tried to keep him away from any type of suffering. But then one day he went out into the city for the first time and he saw a person that was sick, like really sick. And he'd never seen like true disease. And it made him really depressed. And then he went back out the next day and he saw somebody that was old. And that person was really old, like bent over, like decrepitly old, no teeth old. And he'd never seen old age like that. And it made him really depressed. And then he goes out into the city the next day and he sees a corpse lying out in the street. And he's never seen a dead body before. And the reason that story was impactful back in the day was because that was ancient India. Nobody got by without seeing old age, sickness, and death. So it was a novel story. And now it has come back around to where it's a novel story for us because we hide old age, sickness, and death in our society. And one of the ways that this monk ended up getting over this aversion to old age, sickness, and death was the next day when he went into the city, he saw a person seated looking like they were dead. And he asked his companion, is that person also a corpse? And his companion was like, no, that's a yogi. He's meditating. When your body looks like it's dead, but your spirit is soaring, that's yoga. And so that set him on the path. And that person was the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. And the first noble truth of Buddhism is just there is suffering. That's it. That's the number one absolute truth that the Buddha has sent to us 2,500 years later, and it resonates with so many people. It's just suffering exists. And what do you do with that? You just have to accept it. So how I deal with setbacks is I just accept things as they are.
That's a powerful story, and that is one excellent way to look at things and look at setbacks and acceptance. Would you consider yourself Buddhist faith?
So I did a speech a couple years ago where I went over like a longer version of the story that I just told. And then the punchline of the story is I'm neither a Buddhist nor a non-Buddhist. And I completely understand that that's the most Buddhist thing that you could ever say.
You know, I know that everybody is on a different walk. And I think faith can play a massive role in it. You know, for me, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, and I follow the teachings that Jesus set out, and far from perfect at implementing the majority of it. But you know, each day, especially as I get older and I watch my daughter grow up and things, I do try to do a lot better in that, and I find that faith can be just such a powerful tool on this journey for people. And so it had me just curious on that aspect in your life, and how you would utilize that. So,
yeah, and I think faith, hope is an important thing. And I love the Rabbi Yeshua also, aka Jesus in American vernacular. One of the things that Jesus says that really resonates with me is like, and it's all Greek to me, so I'm going to paraphrase. Like, who among you can add a centimeter to your height by worrying about it, by stressing out about it? And then he goes on to talk about how the lilies of the field don't stress out. The birds of the sky don't stress about where their next meal is going to come from. Tomorrow will stress for itself. You don't have to stress out about tomorrow. Worry about today, which is like, that could have also come from the Buddha. Because what we're talking about is present moment awareness and having faith that things have been working out for you already, and they'll continue to work out for you. That is not to ignore the suffering in the world. That's also, Jesus was very tuned into the suffering of the people of his time, to put it lightly.
Yeah. And you mentioned present moment awareness, and I look at society today, and to an extent, it's all of us, right? That we're so distracted by everything. Number one, we all can't focus on one thing for more than 30 seconds thanks to social media, TikTok, just quick things that we take our mind away for a brief moment, and then we want more. Do you think we have a major problem, like I believe we have, in being present in the moment?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like a yes and a no answer, though. Because I think people are micro-dosing meditation all the time, basically. Like the type of person that can't sit in the car without having the music on. You might say, like, man, are you just afraid of your own thoughts? But no, that person actually wants something to return them to the present moment, to keep them from getting trapped in their thoughts. So, yes, I do think there is an issue with, I would call it like, you are what you eat doesn't just apply to food.
Right.
So if you want to have positive mental experiences, consume art that's positively mentally stimulating.
Right. Yeah.
And social media is junk food.
Absolutely. Now there are good content creators out there that do push solid messages and do try to add some positivity and value out there, but they are far and few between. For the most part, but there are some highlights out there, and I believe hopefully we can continue to grow and get to a better state in terms of that. But from what I see, especially with the younger, I say younger because I mean, look at me, I got gray hair in my beard now. We've known each other so long, and we started wrestling when we were pretty much adults. And here we are. So I could say the younger generation, but I look at them and it scares me to a degree. But I have hope, and I try to stay positive about that too, because like you said, it's the environment we put ourselves in. It's we wake up in the morning and decide how we're going to tackle the day, and we can choose pretty much what kind of day it's going to be. And I try to wake up each morning and have that mindset that today's going to be a good day, and that I can try to do something good in the world. And then there's obstacles and roadblocks that might interfere with that a little bit. But we do have a lot of control in the environment and what we want life to be.
But I will say this, because like we can get lost in the weeds of this conversation of individual responsibility for our own mental health.
Yeah.
But people are suffering out there.
Yes.
There are people that work full-time jobs, 40 plus hours a week, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And they don't have the time that we might have as professional wrestlers that can pay some bills off of our passion.
Yeah.
And so for them to hear, like, it's the environment that you put yourself in, and they're thinking, the world put me in this environment. I go to a job where I feel meaningless. I have no connection to my work.
Right.
An example of, like, we go to the merch table as professional wrestlers. We sell our own goods. If we've got a big line at our merch table, we are so happy.
You do. I'm a heel. People don't buy my merch. They throw it in the trash and boo me all day.
But if you had a big line of people ready to buy your picture so they could rip it in half, you would feel good about that line, correct?
So true. So true.
But now imagine you're flipping burgers for somebody else.
Yeah. And
no matter how many burgers you flip, how many burgers you sell, you don't get a reward for that amount of work. Mm-hmm. You just get a set payoff.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are stuck in situations like that where, like, to get lost in the weeds like this and just say that it's all about creating your own situations of positive mental health. I don't want that to take away from the fact that we should all be doing things to try to help build communities where people can feel mentally healthy.
People in those situations, and we know a lot of them, and I'm sure there's probably some listening right now. What would you tell them?
Start a union, join a union. We don't have to get overly political here, but I believe in democratization of the workforce, where workers have a say in the work that they put out.
And that plays into the community that you were talking about.
Medication for me. So if you can do the things that we're talking about on top of your dehumanizing workplace environment, like, it will help.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I don't want you to have the world.
Yeah.
To not have to meditate away the stress of worrying if you're going to be able to pay the light bill and put beans on the table.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're running a little low on time, but just to kind of wrap up, any advice that you would just pass generally on to those listening? What kind of word of encouragement can you push along to somebody who might be having a rough day?
I have faith that it will get better for you, and I hope you do too.
Awesome. Jason, I know you kind of plugged some of the stuff at the beginning in terms of social media and everything, but where can people find you?
People always wait till the end, but maybe everybody doesn't take the full journey with us, so I shout myself out at the very beginning.
Yeah, but list your handles this time. Yeah.
Organization rants and they turn it off. But it's at Gift Kincaid, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat if you want to send me some spicy pictures.
Awesome. I thank you for being the first here. As I was saying before, when I was thinking about who all to bring on, and I have had so many messages of people wanting to share their story. And I do plan on having people from all walks of life, whether it's wrestling, entertainment, fitness, video games, people working in the factories, people in healthcare. I want to have stories just from everybody, because I think that's how we grow and learn from, just taking something from anybody we meet. I think we have the opportunity to learn every day. But I wanted to kick this off with you because I know we have had some of those deep conversations, and I knew this would be good. And I feel just in this short amount of time that we have delivered something special. And I want to bring you back on from time to time so we can do a deeper dive maybe into just one of those areas that we've talked about today and kind of pick it apart a little bit more. But thank you. Yeah, deep dives.
I'm all about it, man.
Yeah.
But real quick, I know you're trying to wrap it up, but can you give a quick summary of what you do for your own mental health? I'm always about learning too.
Yeah, and this is something that I think over time with the podcast, I think I'll be able to expand on it and share on it more. But I start every morning now, and this has changed recently, but I start every morning now. I go to the gym and I get a workout in to start my day. Even when I pick up the phone and that alarm's going off and I want to just press snooze, I do not let myself press snooze. I got to get up and go, because if I don't, then it's like the Snickers commercials. I'm going to be in a grumpy, grizzly, bad mood all day, So I do that, and then I try to get up throughout the day. I try to take some walks. I try to soak up some time outside. I do more of a job now, carving out some family time. I soak up time with my daughter, and that just watching her grow and learn and see the world is good for my mental health, because I get to just see it all, from a different perspective than when I was a kid, and I find a lot of value in that. And then I surround myself with people. I don't like being alone. So I have to have a good community, and so I try to make new friends every day, and I rely on them. I interact with people all the time, and sometimes I have a bad habit of not talking to somebody in particular, like even us, me and you will go a couple months here and there sometimes without chatting, but I'm always constantly trying to interact with somebody and just see what I can learn from them or just find value in that engagement. So just keeping a strong community, and that's part of what I'm trying to do and build here, is building up a good community of people that everybody can kind of share their stories with and rely on and go to when they need support. So thank you for being a kickoff point for that.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for having me. And as I sign off, I just want to say one of the things that you just said that really resonates with me is not wanting to go to the gym, but going anyways, because that's always the generic advice that I give people. Like, yeah. I don't like going to the gym, but I like the feeling of having worked out.
Right.
I don't like to take a cold shower, but I like the feeling of have cold showered.
Yeah.
And so much of life is based around that delayed gratification, as opposed to the junk food of actual junk food or the junk food of like the dopamine hit of social media.
Mm-hmm.
Delayed gratification will really help your mental health. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, my friend. We'll get you back on soon. Yeah, absolutely. Canada's calling. Love you, my brother.
Solid.
Bye. I can't thank Jason enough for being guest number 1 on this podcast. And, through these conversations, I hope we can shed some light on the importance of mental health, offer insights and inspirations for listeners who might be struggling with their own mental health. And I hope you found something within that chat between Jason and myself. Now, I'm excited to connect with each of you on these episodes and outside of them as well. Please visit WrestlingMind.com for all information around the podcast. Check out our Facebook page. We've also started a Facebook group, which I hope we can build into a community to share messages and stories and support with each other. So we're looking to build that over the next few weeks and months. I've got some really exciting things lined up for this podcast. Please get on your podcast downloader, subscribe, leave us a review. Those help us in more ways than you can imagine, as well as on our social media. If you can, share our posts, help us get the word out, because I feel this can be something special to truly help those in need. I appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned for more, and now go and make something awesome out of today.